Hello snowboarders of the internet, I'm your host Avran LeFeber, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the Rome Stalefish, Stolly Sandbeck's powder freestyle board. This board features Rome's Free the Ride camber, which is a rocker in the nose, slight flat section, then a set back traditional camber. So all your load, pop, snap, and drive is going to come more from your back foot, and when you really engage it, it's going to elevate that nose, giving you ease of entry in and out of turns, as well as more optimal powder float. This board is available in 151, 154, 157, and 160. I rode this board at Copper Mountain on a sunny bluebird day that had light, fluffy blower pow at the start of the day, and then it was a little bit heavier as the sun came out and things warmed up. There was zero wind, perfect corduroy with a light dusting of pow because they groomed late, little bit of chop and shunder for good measure, and I rode it with my Rome Black Label bindings and my K2 Thraxis boots. So when you look at this board, you can clearly see it has a directional shape. That means it's going to have a softer nose, progressively stiffening back up to the tail. There is a key flex point right inside that rear insert pack, so when you really push into the camber, it helps elevate the nose. It also changes how it drives on edge. The torsional flex is noticeable, but it's responsive. It wants to snap back on you. When it comes to stability, the camber profile, the width, and the flax walls and impact plates, plus the rod in the nose, really help give this a smoother ride. If anything, I think this board's a little more smooth and just a hair stiffer than the sample I rode last year for it, but what you do get is a nose that will crust bust. It will push through chop and shunder with ease with very minimal reverberation of any of that chatter or kinetic energy towards the front foot. That's really going to help keep this stable, and then that midsection just stays on top of everything, plows through it, and if you hit something buried underneath, you're not going to get bucked around. Overall, this board is very smooth, very stable, and it doesn't sacrifice its liveliness with its dampness. The camber is more dominant under the rear foot. You're going to notice that. So a lot of that spring is going to come off the tail, especially right outside that back foot. You're going to be able to just put that pressure on the outside of the foot, push into the tail, and it's going to spring. There is solid snap with this board. One thing I want you to know is that it is quick to reload, meaning that it will go back to its original shape. So if you're hitting like a double line, expect a lot of rebound that second time. So like you're going to pop, come down, even if it's small feature, it's going to reset in that time and want to spring you again. So you're just basically getting this powerful rebound that's just pop, pop, pop. Overall, like I said, this board is snappy. Doesn't take a lot of effort to load up that back, but you do get a lot out of it. The rebound is good. You're going to be able to send a side hit, launch a cat track gap, porpoise and fresh pow with relative ease. All right, why don't you click like, subscribe, click the bell, get those notifications. You know the whole drill. You want to do it or you don't. Who am I to tell you what to do? You're watching this review. The nose is going to be easier to butter than the tail, even with that rod in there that is going to fight you. You have a 3D shaping in there, so it spoons that nose. So when you pop a 180, if you just land hard or you're going to over rotate it, it doesn't catch and hook. It allows you to kind of spatula through the fresh snow or even on a groomer. And then when you're holding your weight, because you want to keep it way out over the tip, you can engage that rod and it will spring and you're going to be able to pop around. With the tail, you got a little less surface area and you have more camber fighting you. You really need to keep your weight on the outside of the insert pack and push into it when you're sideways. And even then, it's going to fight you a lot. You're going to notice how reactive it is and how it wants to disengage. So keep that weight and your hip out over the tail. You're not going to have a problem. And when it starts to disengage and you realize it's going to spring, just go with it. Don't fight it. It's going to be easier for you in the long run. So one of the things you're going to notice with this board is that 3D shaping in the nose that elevates the contact point. That gives you a smooth transition onto the edge. And then as you're getting into the arc of the carve, it actually bites right where the 3D ends, and there's that slight flat section, so it's kind of skipping the rocker in there, and it takes a little bit more to engage. You're gonna notice it. It's not a lot, but it's a little. It feels almost like it's hooky. It's not, it's just biting in. From there, that lets you drive it just outside the front foot to steer everything. You can ankle steer this board, but it's very responsive. Where it gets better though is in front of that rear foot. That, if you disengage the front foot and you're really just driving it from the back, changes the apex of the carve and the power dynamic that you're putting into it. This lets you, when you're coming through a very hard, aggressive carve, get a little more power out of the tail, which will snap you out and get you back to flat base, allowing you to transition over onto your other edge. Basically, if you know how to carve, you're not gonna have a problem with this board. If you don't know how to carve, you're still not gonna have a problem with this board. They're just gonna look really sloppy and soggy, and no one likes that. Don't skid your turns, people. Learn how to carve. There's a time and a place to skid your turns, but most of the time you want to be on edge and actually driving this board. That's what you ideally get with it, is that power, that response, and how it engages. Rider in mind. So who's this board for? The POW-focused resort rider. Someone that's gonna rip a hard carve on the corduroy to get to the goods, to get that optimal float, and is gonna send it, and they want a ton of spring out of their deck. If you like what we're doing over here and you want to support us further, swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP and become a member. Sure, I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. I'm pretty sure that this board is stiffer than the one I rode last year. That happens with sampling, and there is a difference in this with the rod in the nose. This has the carbon rod, not the bamboo Omega hot rod. Getting rid of that organic flex makes this a little bit more reactive in my opinion, and that's probably what's actually changing the flex on the nose of it just a little bit. Otherwise, I like this board. It floats well, it carves well, you can kind of just take it anywhere. If you wanted to go spend time in the park, you could, because it's got enough of a freestyle focus. That 3D shaping is subtle enough that you don't feel like you're on a saucer sled, but you get all the benefits of ease of entry in and out of turns, and then it grips a little more aggressively back towards the front foot. You will notice that, like I said earlier in this review, it's a good board. It really is. Comparable boards: the Ride Smokescreen, the Bataleon Cameleon, the Nitro Slash. Binding recommendations: the Rome Katana Pro, the Union Atlas Pro, the Nitro Team Pro. This has been my review of the Rome Stalefish. If you liked it, why don't you go check out one of the reviews for one of the comparable boards? Come on, educate yourself, people.